Tuesday's Tips and Tricks.
Yeah.
Hey folks, welcome back to another Tuesday's Tips and Tricks. I'm Chelsea.
I'm Nathaniel.
And today we're talking about hardiness zones and how to read tags and to make sure you're getting a plant that will survive
In your
Kansas.
area. Yep.
So let's get started. So first let's talk about hardiness zones and what our zone is. So from what we know collectively, because we don't know for sure, is there are zones from, I'm assuming 1 to 11. We've only ever seen tags for like 2.
At the
and,
coldest.
And 11, that's the highest I've seen.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that is it, but I don't know. But we're in zone 6B. Now our zone has changed from the past, well, I don't know, 30 years. In the 90s it was like zone 6, like straight on, and now we're kind of like moving towards zone 7, so we're like 6.5, and they call that 6B.
6B. So if you go a little further north in Kansas, you'll get to 6A, and actually I think northwest Kansas is even zone 5.
So it gets pretty cold.
Yep.
And it also gets pretty hot.
So those numbers are attached to your average minimum winter temperatures. Now the important word there is average. This is not your extreme minimum temperature. So for zone 6B, that would look like -5 to 0 degrees. If you're if the tag says zone 6 and it doesn't specify zone 6B or 6A, then it means it's -10 to 0 degrees is what you want to plan on if it just blanket statement zone 6. But for zone 6B specific, we're a little bit warmer for our average winter temperature.
Yep. So now that's just the cold hardiness.
Yes.
Most of these tags won't, I mean, every once in a while you'll see one, but most of these tags don't have zone 6 to zone 11 or whatever.
Right.
They usually just tell you their cold hardiness and not their heat index or whatever. Which is important for us because Kansas gets really hot. And it's unrelenting. So you could get a plant that says it's zone 2, which is real cold. You'll
Yes.
find those plants in like Alaska or Canada.
Up on the mountain or something.
Yeah, so real cold. But those places also don't get, 100-degree temperatures throughout the entire day into the night.
Yes.
Which is what we get.
Yeah.
So that stuff probably won't do great here.
Yeah, so like delphinium is one. You can grow it here. People do. But it is for the devoted gardener. It's not easy. There are varieties that are easier, but it's in general, it's like, I think zone 3 is what delphinium, most varieties are rated for zone 3 to 8 or something like that. And they just don't like the sustained heat that we get. It's 110 degrees in the day and it's 90, 95 at night. It's just not a cool down for them at night. If it got 100 during the day and 60 or 70 at night, they'd probably thrive. But we don't have that.
But that doesn't. Why do we live here? We don't know. So that being said, we were thinking we'd go ahead and look at some tags. We've got several here. We've got a whole collection, a box of tags that we collected.
I don't know why we hoard them.
No, we don't ever reuse them, so why? I don't know. Anyway, so we'll look at it. This is actually kind of fun. We have 2 of the same plant. It's also funny to see what other people call this different names of plants. So like this one is a creeping jenny, also called a moneywort, but this one calls it Goldilocks. And then this one's just golden moneywort. So let's compare the tags. The nice thing about living in the 21st century is that we have the internet and we have this thing called Google, where if you don't know there's not information on these things, you can always look it up.
And these 2, I can tell by looking at them, these are really pretty good tags. They tell you quite a bit of information, but some nurseries, growers give like no information on the tag.
They'll have a tag, I don't have one, like this.
With very little info.
It says, how to grow, plant in the sun or part sun. That's all. Or you'll get a tag that says, variety foliage or something, and it doesn't even tell you what it is. So it's
a good
real
tag
helpful.
will have lots of information for you on it.
Why do they make tags with no information without even a name on it? No one knows. Okay, so on here it says zones. Now this one gives a zone between.
Yep.
So we have zone 3 to zone 10. So that means it can get down to -40.
Yeah.
That's cold.
So when you see that wide range, that means that plant's pretty adaptable temperature-wise. So even though it's zone 3, but it goes all the way to 10.
10 is hot.
Pretty hot. That's like Florida. So
this is like a good plant.
Yeah.
And you would know, because if you have moneywort growing around, it can grow literally anywhere. It
Yeah.
can grow in the sand, it can grow in rocks, it can grow in good dirt, it can grow in the water. Anyway.
sun or shade.
Sun or shade, anywhere. So this one here says it's zone 4, -20 to -30, which again, doesn't really matter for us because we're in zone 6, so
Yeah.
it's fine. I guess if you're in Alaska and
You're on the edge.
and they're zone 2, they maybe once a year they might get by. I don't know.
They can plant these as nice trailing annuals in their pots
Yeah.
and stuff. That's another thing. So just because a plant isn't hardy in your zone doesn't mean you shouldn't grow it. It's more of, well, just don't expect it to come back. Plant it as an annual in your arranged pots or hanging baskets that way.
Right. Well, and a lot of annuals are actual tropical plants that just don't grow in our zone, but we treat them as annuals.
Yeah. And by don't grow in our zone, she means they won't survive the winter.
Yeah.
But they'll grow beautifully in the summertime.
Yeah. Do you have an example? I don't know what's actually an annual that just can't handle any more growth.
So, begonias are a great one. Begonias in their zone are perennial. They don't, in fact, usually they're evergreen perennials in their zone where they can survive the winter.
Here's one right here.
But some of them do go dormant, but they would be a perennial. They're just grown as annuals here because they're out of their hardiness zone. But it's a great plant to grow for summer color on your patio and your little courtyard shade garden, whatever.
And they're cheap, so it's
yeah.
not one of those things where you spent a lot of money and it died. You know,
Right.
you spent $4 for a plant and you got to see it do its awesome thing, and then it was done.
Yeah.
But then there are actual annuals that grow and bloom prolifically the entire season, and then they just spent their
Then
whole
they're done.
lifespan just
And
growing.
that would be marigolds, petunias, vinca, the flower, not the vine, but the flower. What's another? Cosmos, larkspur. There's lots of them.
So those are like true annuals that they only survive a year and that's it.
And if you were to want to try and save those plants and bring them into, if you have a greenhouse or sunroom or a well-lit window, they're going to fizzle out no matter what, because it's programmed into the DNA of the plant that I grow, I flower, I drop seed, I die.
Done.
That's what they do. You might extend the life a little bit, but they're going to get sadder and
And to
sadder.
extend the life of an annual is you cut the buds, right? You don't let them go to
yeah,
seed.
yeah, you can pinch the old blooms off before they produce seed, and they'll
Yeah.
send more energy into growth and blooming.
And then they'll be
again.
like, oh no, I can't
Yeah.
reproduce. I have to keep growing.
yeah.
Poor guys. What do we do to these poor things?
Something to consider with plants and tags. Sometimes, like these creeping Jenny or moneywort that Chelsea brought up earlier, they have two different names on the same tag. Now, you don't need to memorize botanical names like I try to do, but what you can go on here and do is go, okay, this looks like what I have, but it has a different name than the plant I bought. Well, Lismachia numularia. Okay, that's the botanical. That will be the same on this tag too, if I can find
Well,
it.
there it is.
There it is. And then the variety is aria because it is golden. So the botanical will always stay the same, but you'll have multiple common names for plants on tags, and who knows what they'll print on it.
Yep. So that's basically it.
Yeah.
And I would always, we've discovered through buying lots of plants and observing them grow and things like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes these tags are wrong.
Yeah, so double check.
So that's the nice thing again about 21st century. You have a tag, it has a lot of information on it. You can go online and look at it. Or even better, come to a nursery where you live, where
Yep.
these people have dealt with these plants in the ground or in pots and can tell you, it says it does this, but it really struggles, or this plant can grow anywhere. So
Yeah.
just use your resources.
Yeah, because what it says online or even on the tag is not necessarily how things work in your zone. There are trees that we can plant in Kansas that will grow here. But because we have a harsher condition than they would prefer, the tag might say they get 50 feet tall, when in reality we may never see them exceed 25 in our area.
Just so
'cause-
not in the best
Yeah,
environment.
they'll grow, but and look nice, but they won't become the giant that the tag says
they
they are.
potentially could have been
Yeah.
in their ideal environment.
Right.
I don't think Kansas is the ideal environment for maybe any plant, really.
Well,
Except for maybe grasses.
prairie
But-
plants.
Prairie plants. All right, well, that's basically it.
That is. That's,
If you have any questions, again, just feel free to comment below.
yeah, and I want to end with this. The reason we're talking about this in the fall instead of the spring, when most people think about planting is in the spring, fall is actually the best time to plant hardy plants, whether it's your perennials, trees, shrubs, even hardy fruit and berry plants, anything that's going to survive the winter in our zone. This is the best time to plant it, and so it's a good time to think about your hardiness zone and understand that, so that you know what you're buying and putting in the ground will survive the winter.
And even though, I mean, it's not going to be as exciting because in the spring all your plants look really awesome and they're already, you know, been grown for you. And then in the fall, everything's kind of doesn't look as hot because they already did their thing. So just know that when you go to a nursery to buy stuff, some stuff isn't going to look spectacular because
Right.
they're not supposed to look spectacular at this time of year. So.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you can't be patient and wait until spring to see how awesome it is. So.
And we might have a video about patience. I'm just kidding. I don't know if we will or not.
He's not kidding. We're going to have one. All right, folks, that's your Tuesday's tips and tricks. We'll see you next week.
Bye.